Did you know that you can just like make your own DIY cabinets? You don't have to do any crazy joinery or anything. You just kind of cut out some easy shapes from any type of plywood you want, then just screw them together. Don't tell them I told you, but making nice cabinets is not just reserved for professionals. You can easily make them too, and they're gonna function and look pretty much the same. So here's the super helpful cabinet that we're making today. I have this corner in my house that I really hate. It's that corner where all the junk seems to accumulate, like literally wasted square footage. And I know that you have one too. But luckily for all of us, I have a solution that's going to eliminate the junk corner and replace it with more storage that makes use of that wasted floor space. This corner cabinet is simple to make, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it in today's video. So buckle up, because we're going to knock it out quick. To start this easy build off, you're going to want to start with the body of the corner cabinet. Let's take some plywood, then we're going to throw it down on a table saw. Now, I'm making a bigger cabinet here because I want a lot of storage, but you can make yours whatever size you want to fit your space. And before we get any deeper, here are the bare minimum tools that you'll need. Now, you will see me use tools outside of this list, and while they are nice to have, they aren't mandatory. In this video, we'll show you all the steps to make your own, but if you need more help, just comment and I'll try to respond to them. There's also a build guide that's going to give even more details. But let's get back to cutting the body of this thing. Right now, I'm cutting these two back panels to size, and these are the dimensions that I'm going to use for them. And you can cut these rectangles with a circular saw or a track saw, but I like the table saw because I just have such a command over this tool and all the materials I shape with it. For the second panel, we got to change that fence just a little bit. We keep the 48-inch dimension, but we're going to make it a little bit narrower on the rip. Then just repeat that textbook table saw cut. Dang, that's good. Now armed with those two panels that are slightly different widths but the exact same height, you just put them right next to each other at about a 90-degree angle. And make sure the smaller one butts up against the bigger one. Then using cabinet screws, go through the broad face of one into the side of the one that's butting up into it. Don't worry if it's a little bit squirrely when you only have one screw in there, but trust me, the joint solidifies quickly as you add more. And yeah, I realize I'm asking you to trust someone who's wearing sandals while woodworking. And I don't think that says much about the competence of the woodworker, but maybe more about the ease of the project. You just simply don't need to bust out the steel toes for this one. And of course, this simple butt joint isn't as strong as the Nova Scotian quad laminated spline joint. I'm just trying to decrease the barrier to entry. But the question is, will this thing last 2 or 3 moves in 15 plus years? Well, yeah, I'm expecting mine to. But after you got about 4 screws in that joint, grab yourself a piece of plywood and throw it in the corner that you just made. Squeeze those vertical panels to 90, then grab a flat edge to trace corner to corner. Perfect. Let's go cut that panel, but before we do, safety first with some earmuffs, goggles, and a mask. Now I need to acknowledge that I am using a very nice track saw to make this cut. Building stuff is my full-time job, and I was trying to make this piece very quickly. Even without this tool, this cut is still very easy. Like, you could still freehand a circular saw right here and it would work just fine. But however you make that cut, you can now take the triangle back to the body, and the upright pieces are going to fit line to line with the edges and perfectly flush with the corners. But before we connect the base to the body, we have to use it to trace out the top. If you remember this little beauty, he's really going to come in handy now. Take that base triangle and trace out the angled lines on this strip. And if the first 2 panels you cut for this project didn't produce a strip like this, just go find any spare strip of wood or plywood in the shop. And you could cut those lines we just drew with the miter saw angled at 45 degrees. But I'm going to use this sled right here, set up at exactly the correct approach angle, all meticulously working together on my table saw because nothing can beat that accuracy. Watch me just put it on the money right here. I mean, you gotta scooch it over to get it like perfect, but I mean, like a little more scooching and you die. I mean, you get it, right? But once you have, on the first attempt, very accurately made that angled cut, it's the exact same angle on the other side. So you just flip the stick and then no, that's the opposite angle. If it goes upside down, no, change that knob. Can I turn it around and then we get the angle? No, we've already cut that side. Can I not just flip this? Yep, all right, we gotta turn it. Now with this top strip done, let's attach both of them to the body. Connecting those pieces can be a little difficult to start, so I'm going to put a cabinet screw through that side panel just so there's a little spike sticking out into where the corner is going to meet up with it. And you just kind of stab it into that next piece so the triangle is not going to drift on you when you really try to screw them together. And as I'm putting all these screws into it, it's totally a feel thing to make sure that all the panels are flush and even with each other. It's also important when you're screwing in this base triangle to get pretty close to the tips there without having the screw pop out that diagonal side. That should be demonstrated on camera here, but my big ass head's in the way. And we are going for efficiency on this build, so if you have a screw fall on you, just give up on that soldier and reload instantly. I mean, theoretically, these cabinet screws were supposed to be self-tapping, which means that they just kind of burrow their way in there. You don't need a pilot hole, it doesn't crack the wood, but man, these long ones were tough to get started. With that base triangle attached enough, we do something very similar for the top of the body where we're gonna attach that strip we cut earlier. At this point, you could flip the whole body on its side, you could turn it upside down, but because I'm lazy, I'm just gonna keep it right side up and I'm gonna try to float that little strip. I'll use that same technique where I drill through that sidewall and just leave myself a little spike. I can stab it into the end of the strip, and then once it's stabbed in there and set, I drill the rest of the way in. And make sure to drive like 2 in each side so it doesn't rotate, but doing this, you are gonna lose a few good men. With the body now formed, we have to make sure we can add shelving. Otherwise, what would you put in here? Like a... So instead, I'm gonna make variable height shelves by drilling holes where I can put those little pegs in it later. You don't have to do this, but if you do, you could use a jig like this or just space them out every 2 inches or so. Then you just wanna make a row of holes on the exterior and the interior edges of each panel. And at this point, you could really hit the easy button and not even add doors to your corner cabinet. But because the things we wanna put inside aren't the prettiest, I am going to add doors to ours. So I'm gonna throw in some hinges now. Cabinet hinges have gotten very sophisticated over the years. Believe me when I say there are so many ways for the doors to interface with the body of the cabinet. And for each configuration, the hinges have been expertly engineered so that the doors don't hit the body of the cabinet or the walls when they open up. There's no interference of material. But for our cabinet, we have a unique geometry, a unique situation for our doors. Long story short, I couldn't figure out how to make any of those fancy hinges work, so I'm just using a standard hinge. If you are a better cabinet maker than I, maybe you can figure out how to make one of those really cool hinges work, but these work just fine for a DIY build like this. With the simple hinges now connected, we just need to add a few homey touches, you know?
Homey touches? Like what? A door?
And if you are liking the video, consider liking and subscribing. It really helps a lot. Fox, people. We do other how-to build projects. We do some crazy builds. And we do some crazy builds. Like, we're talking hand making an entirely wooden set of golf clubs and actually trying them out on the course. We think the page is a good time. Dude, your breath smells like fish. Good dog. Alright, back to the build. For my door, I'm going to use a sheet of nice white oak plywood because look at the grain of that bad boy. If I can use this one panel and just cut it in half, then that grain should be continuous from the left door to the right door. That's going to be a cool effect, right? Well, we'll check on how I do later.
Yeah, I love that.
But first, if I actually want to utilize the nice grain on the face of the doors, I gotta deal with the grain on the side of the doors. These damn edges, it's almost like they need to get banded by something. Well, luckily there's something called edge banding. It's just thin strips of real wood and it's already got one side pre-glued. And you just activate the glue using a normal clothes iron.
Good grief, that was stupid.
And you only need to do this step and edge band your plywood panels if you intend on seeing wood grain in your final piece. Like if you're gonna put a clear finish on the wood, or you're gonna put a light stain on the wood so you can still tell that those panels are wood, then you gotta edge band it because the edges of the plywood are like layers of those composite materials. However, if you just want to paint the entire thing, you can't see the wood grain, so you can get away without doing this entire step, because you'll just paint over those layers that you can see from the side. It doesn't matter. But because I do have plans to show off all the really cool grain of the panels, I'm going to even edge band the body of the cabinet as well, because you can see this thin strip right here. And after all that edge banding, the doors are now ready to get hung up. And before I do hang them, I'm going to mark the front of the doors in the correct orientation, because a rectangle looks like a rectangle from a bunch of different ways. And I don't want to mess up that grain continuity that we worked for. Now, being straight up with you, hanging the doors is the hardest part of this entire project. The modern hinges I was talking about earlier make this process much easier, but we're just gonna get through it. First, you're gonna want to put your entire cabinet upside down on the table or something. That tabletop surface is the exact same plane of the very top of your entire piece. You know, this will be the tabletop. We haven't talked about it, but I know mine's gonna be 3/4 of an inch. I've just put a stand-in spacer underneath the body we've already made. That way, the top of the door is going to be perfectly flush with the top of the entire piece. Then you just kind of grind through attaching those hinges to the doors. And you're just trying to keep spacing even between the door and the body, and you're trying to make the hinges hit on the same part of the door, and you make marks and you drill it in with pilot holes. It's tough, but if you're patient and meticulous with your marks and your pilot holes, maybe you get someone to help you hold it to keep the spacing. Now, you really can hang these doors to where they look nice and even with each other and they open clean. I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, let's breeze through making the top of this thing. You could totally hit the easy button and make another triangle out of plywood like we did earlier. But remember, I wanted that grain visible, so I decided to go with a hardwood tabletop. I had some extra white oak planks, so I just cut those and did a simple triangular-ish glue up. Now, I'm very partial to having my tabletop surfaces be made out of hardwood so that they're more durable. But if I were gonna make this piece again, I'd just make this triangular top out of plywood. Either way, you wanna position it such that the front of that tabletop is perfectly flush with the doors. In once positioned, trace it and cut it so that it fits to the outside of the body of the cabinet. And if you are liking this build, but you're looking for even more detailed instructions on it, you know, more diagrams, numbers, concisely written steps, check out the Patreon page, because we got a full build document on this piece. We got other builds that you can learn how to do. We got behind the scenes. It's a good time. Support on Patreon directly helps us to design and troubleshoot builds exactly like these so that you can tackle them as well. Now currently this triangular body would just be sitting on the ground, and that's just not going to cut it, because then the doors would hit the ground and you couldn't stand that close to it because your toes would hit the doors. So we've got to make a toe kick for this thing. It's just a little triangular foundation that the piece sits on. It's easy. We're going to take some scrap pieces of plywood. I think you'll have some offcuts from when you cut the panels for the doors or the panels for the body. So we're going to rip those bad boys to a width of 3.5 inches. Now if your offcuts only allow for 3-inch rips, well, hey, if life gives you lemons. Now you need enough of these strips to give you 3 sections. And for the lengths of everything, I'd try to make the 2 legs of this toe kick pretty close to the same length of the legs of the body. Now for the hypotenuse in the middle, I'm pretty sure Pythagoras taught us something about that. I have full confidence that we can all do this math. And you can just screw it all together. Doesn't need to be perfect as long as your screws don't poke out the front. And after that, you're done with what I consider the easiest part of this entire build. You have a toe kick or a foundation which you can put your entire piece on top of. One thing I want to call out here though, when I opened the doors of the cabinet, there was a lot of weight overhanging that toe kick, and the cabinet did seem to want to lean forward with those doors. Woo! It definitely got a lot better when I actually put things inside the cabinet and it kind of weighted it down. But just don't make your toe kick with too much overhang, and if you can, maybe even screw this into the wall behind where it's gonna sit. So if you recall, I chose very nice plywood for the facade of the doors, and that meant that I had to edge band the sides of it because you could see all the layers, and then I went for the hardwood top. All of that was to show off the grain of the wood, you know, flex a little bit. And if I'm gonna show off that grain, it's gotta be Rubio Monocoat for the finish. But I took a risk and went with a blue Rubio Monocoat. You can still see the grain of the wood and the slight variation of the color, but it wasn't gonna be a natural tone behind those grains. It was gonna be blue.
It's blue.
Very dark blue.
Yeah, it is.
And Rubio Monocoat usually has an unbelievably even finish. Yeah, it looks nice. But I don't know, I kind of half-assed the sanding of these panels. And I think the intense deep blue stain magnified my laziness and left these doors just a little splotchy.
Huh. Yeah, I love that. It's like uneven. I might just paint it.
It's a cool color, it's just not even.
Yeah. It's like I did all that work edge banding, and I did all that work to make a hardwood top for nothing.
So the takeaway for you is this: staining cabinetry to where you can still see that wood grain is very difficult. This project is even easier if you just intend to paint it, which I kind of recommend. Like if you just paint the damn thing, you can get cheap plywood, you don't need to do the edge banding steps, and you can just use plywood for the top as well. But don't worry, I have a plan to salvage the aesthetic of this one, and it all starts with the handles.
Now, I could go with some standard cabinet handles, but the decorations in my house aren't really standard. I've got a frog mural, we've got grilled fish, and whatever the hell those two pieces are there. So I think we need handles that match that whimsical aesthetic of the rest of the space. Oh yeah, dude. Get a load of that. Get a load of both of those. That's sick.
It's worth mentioning that I moved into a rental pretty much a year ago on the date. And I began creating this thing for that specific corner pretty much like 363 days ago on the date.
That wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been.
Then I left the corner cabinet half-baked for about 11 months. But I decided it was finally time to surprise my girlfriend with this piece that she's always wanted ever since we moved in. The problem was, because I was trying to surprise her, I had to lift and install it on my own. Oh my god, this thing's f***ing heavy. It also meant she'd have to come home to a 90% baked surprise, as I hadn't painted it yet or done the final design. But even then, she was still very impressed.
Holy shit! It's the cabinet!
Well, it's not done, technically. We had some issues at the end.
It fits so well.
It does.
So much good stuff. Maybe even put some of my shoes in there. No,
Yeah, we could definitely put plants up there.
no.
But what I was thinking is we paint it blue. I have the blue paint, but then I found some like brass like strips, like some brass ribbon. So I'll do like a pattern to complement the color of the snails and to match the hinges.
I like the hinges a lot.
Thanks. And then I was gonna kind of do the same up top. What's up, Fox?
How did you get that album?
I did. You like the snails?
I love the snails.
So that's how you make this easy corner cabinet. And those adjustable shelves are just slightly smaller triangles, make them the same way as the base. And I know this is not a professional grade cabinet. I'm just trying to tell you that you can easily make a piece like this that's quite functional and very pretty. It just takes a few basic tools and steps, and you can work up to higher caliber cabinets if you want to. But please do drop a comment if you have questions or suggestions, check out the build plan, and subscribe to see more builds and educational videos just like this. Like in our next video, we're gonna show you exactly how you can finish or refinish a tabletop like a professional. And as always, thank you so much to our YouTube members and our Patreon supporters. You know that we couldn't do this without you, especially Brooks B as a member of the Old Grove supporters. And we will see you next time.